Make Christmas 2025 unforgettable. Explore the holiday magic of Europe with the Travel Bug Girls as we tour Christmas markets across Germany, Switzerland, and France. It's the ultimate Christmas shopping experience happening November 29th through December 7th. So grab your girlfriends and visit travelbuggirls.com to learn more and sign up today. Welcome to the Travel Bug Girls podcast, the show where we dive into the world of travel, exploring everything from expert tips and insider secrets to unforgettable destinations and the latest trends. Whether you're a seasoned globetrotter or planning your very first adventure, we've got you covered with the advice and inspiration you need to make your travels truly unforgettable. So sit back, relax, and let's take your travel planning to the next level. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Travel Bug Girls podcast. I'm Kimmy here with Heather and Tina, and today we are going to be talking about travel tours. We're going to talk about what are travel tours, how to choose the right travel tour, kind of what the options are out there, what to look for, and then share some travel tours that we know about personally and maybe some personal experiences. So I think it's going to be a good episode. Colette is one that Travel Bug Girls have worked with, and so I was doing a little bit of research and I found out that I just thought this was an interesting fact. They started in 1918 and their first tour was a jitney bus from Boston to Florida, and it was a 3-week tour and it cost $68.50, y'all.
I know.
Wow.
I saw, I guess it was a photo. I think there's also an artist rendition of that first bus that they used. Colette is a very established company and they have a very interesting history. So
yes, I thought that was so interesting. Can you imagine a 3-week driving tour from Boston to Florida? That must have been quite the adventure.
Tour.
Yeah, quite the adventure.
Yeah. Before highways, before interstates, at least. Yeah.
I know. Before air conditioning.
Yes.
What if you had a stinky person on the bus?
I'm sure everybody did.
Yeah. Everybody was stinky. They didn't care.
We have a different way of traveling. You know, there's definitely slow was the way to go back then. Now we're like, oh my gosh, it's going to take me 3 hours to get to Vegas from Texas, you know?
Yeah, sometimes I think we miss a lot because we are in such a hurry. You know, we just want to get there. We've talked about this in the past, like making the journey part of the trip and all it, which I think is a good characteristic of like a travel tour, because the journey then is part of the travel experience. Yeah. So I guess that leads us in what is a travel tour? Let's just start there. What are we even talking about? How would you define it?
I think one of the key words in what we're talking about today is guided tours. So you can have a guided tour just for, a few hours. Like, for example, if you go to the Louvre and you don't just pay for your ticket, if you want a guided tour of the Louvre by someone who is an expert, then you pay a different fee and you have a different kind of ticket. And then that provides you not only entrance, but a guide who's going to walk you through and show you the key features of the museum and talk you through the history and all of that. So that's a guided tour. But what we're talking about today is kind of an extension of that. Imagine that, but over the course of a week or 2 weeks, then that's really more what these travel tours are that we're discussing. And there are many variations on what that can look like. But that's essentially the idea, is that you're going to a destination, but you're going to have everything dealt with by a company who does this over and over and have perfected it, hopefully. And that they're going to provide people that are guides that are not only there to help you out, but also to interpret kind of what you're seeing and give you facts and information about the destinations.
I think a lot of times, like you said, there's a little bit confusion of, what do you mean when I go to a tour? Well, what if I want to spend time doing what I want to do? And so I think today we can kind of touch on that there's a lot of have different ways that you can go about doing this. You can have it to where you have something planned with the rest of your group every single day, and everything is planned out. And if that's what you like, perfect. Or you can have something in the middle where, you might have something to do in the morning, in the afternoon, in the middle of the day is up to you. Or you may just have, okay, we're going to guide you to the places, and then, you can choose, or we can give you some options and you can choose to do it or not do it. And so I think that's the biggest thing. It makes it easier because in most cases you can combine everything together. And so it's like a one-stop shop for your whole vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll either be, you have some kind of purpose for it. Maybe you're going to learn about architecture, or maybe you're going to or you're going to do some kind of activity. Maybe you're going to do some hiking or biking or something in different places. So I think that's one thing that kind of surprised me. Like, I don't have to plan all these things really hard, because there's people who specifically know what people like to do over and over, and then they offer it to us.
Yeah. So you kind of touched on it, Heather, like different types of travel tours. And like you said, there's maybe some self-guided, where you go and you just kind of take yourself on it. That's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about more of you have a guide, you have a group of people, might be a small group or a larger group, but they're kind of taking you around and have everything sort of planned out for you. So why would somebody want to do, what's the benefit? Why would somebody want to do a travel tour over just like planning their own personal trip?
I think there are several good reasons. One is if you're going to a destination that makes you feel a little unsure. I don't know that I want to go into this foreign country, for example, where I don't speak the language and then just be kind of left on my own. There are a lot of people that have that stress and they really, really want to see, for example, Rome. Let's just say Rome. Let's say you've always dreamt of going to Rome, but you don't speak Italian, you haven't traveled by yourself anywhere or not very much, and you're feeling nervous about that concept of just being left on your own devices. Then a tour group would be a perfect option for you, because you're going to be, that safety in numbers thing. You're going to be in a group. You're going to be with other people who are also excited about the destination. That's why they spend all this money to come on the same trip. And you're going to be with a guide who does the same tour over and over. Often, these companies now are hiring locals to be their expert guides. So they literally live there. They maybe have family nearby. They're going to tell you about their favorite restaurants, everything. So that is a real benefit. And then, of course, there's that language interpretation. They're going to be doing all of the tours in your language. So there's a lot of this kind of thing. They've dealt with all the details and have vetted the hotels and the restaurants and everything. So there's a lot of comfort, I think, for people that are choosing it for that reason. Another good reason that you might really be drawn to any kind of group tour would be that you want to make other friends. You love travel and you wish you had friends that loved travel. And this is a great way to do that. It's the same as if you've ever heard anyone who said, I went on this cruise and we met the greatest people at dinner and then we ended up hanging out the whole week together. That happens all the time on cruises. This would be the same situation, because it's drawing the same kind of people who are really interested in travel and wanting to see things and learn new things. And then you're all put together in a group for the week. And so you have these shared experiences together. So it is very likely by the end of the week, you're going to have connected with at least one other person on that trip and go home with a new friend.
Yeah, I have a coworker that went on a tour. I think it was somewhere in England, somewhere like that, or maybe Europe, and made friends on the tour. And then they actually got together and went on another trip.
Yes.
With that group of friends that they made. So now they kind of have their own little travel group that they make. So that's, a great benefit.
To me, that's ideal. That's ideal. That's really kind of the thought behind our own group trips with Travel Book Girls is that idea of bringing women together and helping them make friends while they're in the middle of this beautiful experience. So I think it appeals to a certain person. Now, not everybody, of course, wants that, but if you're listening to this and that resonates with you, or maybe you hadn't even thought of like, oh my gosh, I could make friends that love travel. Like, it's a great way to get started and see if that could happen for you. A third reason that you might be interested in something like a guided tour would be if you really just want to show up and enjoy the experience and not have to manage any of the details. Because really from the very beginning, you're just showing up. You just have to get there and then everything else is taken care of. And even further than that, some of these companies, like for example, Colette that we work with a lot, they will start by picking you up at your house and driving you to the airport. So there are a lot of benefits to working with a company like this because they're going to make sure that every detail is taken care of and you can really trust them more and relax. Of course, that is why it really matters that you pick the right company because you want to be able to trust them so that you can enjoy that experience.
Yeah. And I think that's why, even though you're working with a company that's going to plan everything out, working through a travel agent to do that so that you're getting partnered with a reputable company is important, I think. Yeah. Also, I was thinking like if I wanted to travel to somewhere like maybe Africa where I'm doing like a safari wildlife kind of thing, where you're not in like cities where you're traveling through a city and it needs to be kind of planned out and you're in rural areas and you need to know like where you actually have to have planned out where your next stop is going to be, like something like that. A tour is going to be necessary. Yeah.
And some of those locations require permits and like other kinds of planning than what we do in normal travel planning. Parts of Africa are a great example, but so are excursions like the Antarctic. If you are going somewhere that's typically considered inaccessible or difficult to manage, then I think going with an organization that specializes in that is going to benefit you in so many ways.
And then for places that are very popular, like you had mentioned, Rome, I have a client that's going to be taking a tour with rail bookers. And that was one of the things that they had. They said, well, if they want to go do the stadium tour, the first Sunday of the month, it's open to the public for free and you can go in there, but it's not going to be guided and it's not going to be, you're not going to have the time and space set aside for you, because when you just go and show up, you get in the same lines as everybody else. You're having to, wait and everything. When you set up through a tour company, they are like, okay, you're with us and we're going through, and for the most part, depending on the company. But that's the benefit of doing it that way rather than, just piecemealing your trip together. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go here. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go here. But then you're ending up in the same lines that, the rest of the people are in, where you can set up for more private tours through a tour group.
That's a good point. You get a more, personal experience, or preferred status.
Right. Sometimes they do have access to other things that the average person doesn't get to see. It just depends on what you're seeing. But yes, I think it's a real benefit to go with a tour company in that situation. If you really want to see and know and learn everything, then that's really the way to go.
We've talked about the benefits of the travel tour. How do you choose what tour you want to go on? What company, what kind of tour? I mean, there's different kinds of tours. There's all different kinds of tours: sightseeing, adventure tours, cultural, historical, specialty ones. So that might even be like food and wine, or like a wellness tour, maybe an art focused tour. So how do you decide what you want to do? Like, what are some factors that you
I think consider? The biggest thing, I'm coming up with some people who are reaching out to me, they're like, I want to do something cool, but they have no idea what. Okay, so if we got to start off with, what are you looking for? Are you looking to learn something? Are you looking to experience something, and what that is? And once you know what that is and maybe where it is, it's like, okay, I don't know what I want to do, but I know I want to do it in Italy. Okay, what do you like? What was drawing you to Italy? Okay, well, I love wine. I love food. Okay, then we can find maybe a tour that is specifically for wine and food. And then you kind of go from there. How long do you want to be gone? How much time do you want to yourself? And how much time do you want to be guided? How many times do you want to unpack? That's a big one. Because some people are like, oh, I just want to be in one place and then go out and then come back to the same place. And so there are ways to do that. Or there's other ways where you're like, oh no, if I'm going to be going to all these different places, I want to stay at different places, which that's fun too. And so those are just some of the kind of things that you would have to decide, and then, let your travel agent know, and then we should know which companies are going to be best for that.
Yeah. I think foundationally, it's important to know that there are some really common styles of travel that are associated with this kind of tours. And then there are some things that will never work, that they're just not made for. So, for example, a classic tour, and some call this traditional and some call it classic, but a classic tour is typically going to be a very large bus, holds about 40-ish people, and you are traveling from city to city, and in each city you're going to stay in the hotel in the major city, do some sightseeing, guided tours, mostly structured, but they're going to include the restaurants, like your dinners will be included, all the transportation's included, there will be people to help you load your luggage on and off, all of these things are included, so that's a benefit. But you're in a large-ish group, sometimes in some small places. So a great example is Italy. Some of these places are tight, narrow, tiny spaces, and you're there with a group of 45 people. And so it can be not for everyone, if that just in my nicely. Like, some people love this and other people are going to hate it. And so it's nice to know what you're getting into. And that's where really doing your research or working with a travel agent who knows all the ins and outs of these is going to help you match with the right style of travel. So another thing that we're seeing more of, a new trend in this industry, this part of our industry, is small groups. So for a small group, it's going to work similar, but you're going to have 20 people or 24 people or less, depending on the company you're working with and where you're going. And they're capping it at like 24 people. So there's definitely not going to be too many people to manage the whole time. And you have more intimate experiences usually in these, where it's more interactive. So instead of just, a tour that's focused on let's walk and listen and look and listen and walk and listen, a tour guide that's explaining the architecture or the art or whatever. Instead, you're going to have more of those interactive things, the biking tours, a food tour where you're making pasta in some little grandma's house in Italy. These kinds of experiences are going to be more likely to happen in the small group tours than the large groups, but you're going to pay a little more money because it takes more from them to build these. So expect to pay a little more to have that experience. These are the experiences that we're leaning into. Typically, we find that our people are preferring the more interactive and smaller groups. So that if you're watching Travel Bug Girls and our group trips, you're mostly going to see those level of experiences. But it just depends on what you're looking for. Another thing is, if you're wanting a vacation that's all about, got lots of relaxation time, these kinds of tours are not going to be what you're looking for. So if you're like, I mostly want to relax, but I want to go see this one thing or that one thing, right? Or you have, like, in the course of a week, 3 things you want want to see, then that's really not, then we need to plan tours within a more relaxing vacation.
Yeah.
So that's something
Like
to keep.
or a day tour or something like that.
Right, a day tour, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, I ended up doing more. I did a custom because somebody was like, well, I do want to go on these different tours. And the tour company had the option of creating it as they wanted it. So it ended up being where they have like a day between each event. So they have an open day just because they wanted the break.
Yeah.
But it was custom made for them. So it's not necessarily, they're not going to be with the same group the whole time.
And other companies don't do any custom.
Yeah.
So, or they will if you have a group of 40 people. if you're like, listen, my group of friends or my church group or whatever wants to go on this trip, then the companies will often work with you and customize to some extent an experience from a tour that they already have. They might change one or two things to fit your group. Yeah. But most of the big tour companies aren't going to accommodate. So there are only a few that will. Rail Bookers is probably, I'm guessing, what you're speaking of. Rail Bookers is
Rail Booker, yeah. And CIE, I think, has a private driver, but it is very pricey, and it's I think the minimum is like $8,000 just for like two people. So
but it is super customized, like you said. You're not having to drive. You're paying someone to guide you and drive you around Ireland, for example.
Yep.
But you are paying for that person. I mean, because that person is traveling with too. So not only the vehicle and the time and driving, but then staying the night in the hotel and like they're eating and like, so you're paying for that experience to have that custom thing. Whereas when you're in a large group, like a classic tour of 44 people or something, then there's a driver and a guide that are traveling with you and have to stay in the hotel and eat too, but you're dividing that expense across 44 people.
Right. So
it makes it more affordable. So that's just an understanding of like why the pricing structures work the way they do. It's about how much work are you putting on someone just for you.
If you love to travel, you know the best experiences happen when you can truly connect with the people, the culture, and the language. That's where Speak Language Center comes in. With live expert instructors, not AI, Speak helps you go beyond the basics, offering cultural insights, real-world conversation practice, and even travel-infused learning experiences. You can join a scheduled group class, or Speak can create a custom course just for you and your travel pals, tailored to your trip, time zone, and availability. Check out their courses at speaklanguageacademy.com and start speaking your next destination.
So are there like rules as far as like behavior in a tour? Like I'm just wondering, like if you go on a tour with the group and you don't know the people, like you get like some wild person or whatever, like are there kind of guidelines as far as that goes, or is it just like cross your fingers and hope you don't?
There are guidelines and different companies deal with this differently. But if you can imagine it, it has probably happened on a tour.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So someone has gotten drunk and been arrested and had to stay the night in a country. And the tour is like, good luck. And because they're going on to the next country tomorrow or whatever. And so then you would have someone who's like a liaison with the company who is trying to help you navigate that, but you have made a bad choice and now you're stuck, And so those kinds of things happen, but also medical situations happen,
right.
So if it could happen on a trip, it probably has somewhere. And the nice thing about working with a company is there's someone who can help you out of that situation. So if, for example, let's say this is a terrible thing, we would hope none of those things would happen. But if you're on a trip and someone is harassing you that's in the group, you have at least 2 company employees on that trip who can help defend you you, protect you, right? Speak up for you, make accommodations. And so that's a nice thing. Also, P.S., if you were in the street and somebody's harassing you, you have someone on the trip who probably is a local or close to a local who can speak up for you in the native language, and say, hey, this is not okay. And I'm going to report you, so back off, something like that. So that is a real benefit, I think, to being in a group with a respectable company, because those things could happen to you if you're traveling on your own.
And you can do.
What are you going to do? Yeah. So,
yeah, I think that is a benefit too. And like you said, like if something, even outside of like you got drunk and got arrested, but just things happen, flights, transportation, whatever, which as a travel agent, we do what we can, but there is a benefit to having somebody that's like right there in the moment, being able to help you navigate through, these difficult situations. And it's a whole group of people that are going to be dealing with an issue. So that kind of gives you a benefit too. It's not just one person. There's always a little more power behind a group of people dealing with something.
True. You're less likely, I think, to be harassed or targeted.
I think that goes with the whole benefit of the experiencing things together. I don't know if we're ready to talk about our trips yet, but for example, like Heather's trip that she's getting ready to talk about with the Christmas times. I mean, everybody is there to experience this thing together. And, you're almost like a team, whether you are friends before you went or you became friends on the first bus ride, it's about building a community. And so that's really the cool thing about doing that.
Yeah. So what do you guys look for as far as when you're researching a tour company or comparing options for a tour? What do you suggest that our clients look for, people look for?
Go ahead, Tina.
I kind of went over it before. Basically, where do you want to go? What do you want to accomplish? How long do you want to be gone? Possibly how much money do you want to spend? Or are you expecting to spend? And if that's going to include everything. So I would have to look, at, what meals are included. Usually I'll try to all the meals. It just makes it easier. Also would have to look at what kind of experience do you want with the other people? Do you want this to be an adult only, or is this more of a family trip?
Good point.
How comfortable are you walking for a certain amount of distances? If it's like that walking and that type of tour, how long are you okay standing? Or if it's one of the more experienced, the type of tours where you're doing experiences, how much experience do you already have with biking or kayaking or hiking? And will you get to a point where are you going to train to do this? And do you have enough time in order to do that? So those are some of the things I think that I would ask people. What
about as far as like?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I think that really sums it up. I think activity level is a big issue to really be aware of what you're getting into. Some of these locations are a lot of walking. Some are not. Some are much more laid back, and it is important that you know what you're getting into. Many of these companies will have activity level ratings, so they'll give you an idea, like on a scale of 5, right? How active do you need to be able to enjoy this trip? And if you're going to Machu Picchu, for example, you better be prepared. You're going to be not only walking, you're going to be climbing a mountain, because even though they're going to get you most of the way, the end result is you are climbing yourself up into that last part of the mountain, up into Machu Picchu. So there are some real serious considerations on some of these trips. If you're doing a tour, we've talked mostly about foreign tours, but if you're doing U.S. domestic, if you're doing a big tour of the East Coast in the fall, for example, that used to be a really famous one. People would go to see the leaves turn in the fall, and they would get to go to places like Boston for a day, and they might go all the way up into Maine. And so those are some really nice trips, but mostly they're going to be driving, and you're going to be taking pictures out the windows or stopping at like a little overlook and taking pictures and then having a nice lunch. And it's really more about the journey than it is about each individual day of tour, so you're doing less walking and something like that than you are if you're seeing all the sights of Rome, or climbing Machu Picchu, these kinds of things. So it's really important that you really know what level of activity you're getting into and be sure that you're comfortable with that. And if it's something you've always wanted to do, but right now you don't feel comfortable, then plan it a year out and train for it. That's what a lot of people do for these big experiences. I've known people who trained to go to Disney because they were intimidated by how much walking people kept saying it was. And it is a lot of walking.
Yes.
So I would say Disney and Rome would be equivalent. Disney and Paris would be equivalent. If you're really trying to see all the things, you're walking a lot. So you're going to want to prepare for that, So this is the kind of thing that you want to do your research or work with a travel agent and make sure they know their stuff so they can help you make the right choice.
I think another thing that I did a wine tour in California a few years ago, and we went to all the different places, and it was a small group tour. It was I think there were 8 of us total. And one thing that I wouldn't have really thought of is you're going windy mountain roads, and I had to have them stop because I got car sick. And that was before the wine. So when, if you're thinking about the movement, but also when you're going to be still and sitting in a bus or a train or a plane, getting there, understand that that's going to be part of it, where you're going to have beautiful views. I mean, when we were driving through California, I mean, everything was so beautiful, but I'm like, why am I getting so dizzy? Like, this is crazy. I'm like, so it's like, I just needed to have some Dramamine or something, but or just know that could happen. It didn't ruin my trip at all, but just little things like that. Know that there's going to be space in between those places, and it's not all not all the event. It is like you just said, the travel.
I think another thing that that sometimes we don't talk a lot about when it comes to travel. Usually, I find Americans typically are visiting big cities or extremely established tourist places. So like along a coast, a beach area in Cancun, for example, right? So what we don't often think about is what happens when you want to see the countryside somewhere. What happens when you want to go somewhere where the train lines aren't going to the little village you've always heard about, or that, you're scared to rent a car, or there's good reasons not to rent a car in that area. How do you get to some of these more remote locations that are still beautiful and well known for different reasons? I think these tours often can facilitate that. So Ireland, Scotland, the UK, if you're getting off the beaten path, if you want to go out into the countryside, if you want to see castles that aren't in major cities, things like that, then that's a time when you want to work with a company that is really established in those areas, so that you can get out there and see those things. It would be the same if you wanted to go into, the French countryside or the Italian countryside and see their like fortified villages and things like that, like medieval villages that aren't on those main train lines. This is why you would want to work with a tour company that can take you into some of those remote places. In the US, we have some great companies doing our national parks. So they'll organize the whole thing and you can see multiple national parks in one trip if you want to. They have some that do basically the Rockies. So you start in the south and work your way north and you go to some of the most incredible locations, but you're not having to navigate all that goes into that you're with a group that does this over and over, and they know all the best places, because some of these areas you're stretching some like real desolation almost between destinations, and you don't know where the gas is and where can I stop and get food, so you don't have to worry about all that when you're on a tour where they have figured out the best route and the best places to stop, and they've made reservations for lunch, so they're going to pull in and everything's ready. That's sometimes the countryside is the other reason to book a tour group.
How do you decide, or what do you look for as far as a reputable tour company? Like figuring out what company you want to work with, because there's always going to be companies that maybe aren't that great. So you have like some characteristics or some things that you might want to look for, or people might want to look for when they're looking at a tour company as far as making sure they're legit.
I think to start, there are some companies that have been around a very long time. Like we talked about Colette. There are some that have been doing this for a very long time. And they have perfected the regions they've been working in. So that's the first thing is if they've been around a long time, then that's obviously going to be a benefit for you. That is not to say that a newer company isn't a good one. They might have some new ways of doing things. The older companies have established relationships with hotels, established relationships with restaurants, and they basically do the same tour over and over until there's a problem, and then they have to come up with a solution to adjust it. But a new company might have new ideas. So it doesn't mean you only work with the older established companies. Just keep in mind that they've been doing it a long time and have a good idea of how it should work. The other thing to think about though is reviews. There are reviews on all of these companies, easily found, and it would be easy for you to go in and read some reviews, read some recent reviews on the locations you've been to, go on some boards and ask some questions if you need to, if you're concerned. So that's a good thing. And remember that, just as a caveat to all that, I'm a big review reader across the board, no matter what we're talking about. But I think it's important to remember too that, like I said earlier, if something can go wrong on a trip, it has somewhere. Life is very unpredictable, even when we have planned everything perfectly. Okay. And people are unpredictable and things can happen. And I would say the worst thing that happens regularly is flight issues. I think it's important to remember, to take reviews with a grain of salt and really ask yourself, could the tour company really have fixed that situation? Were they really responsible for that? And then make your decision accordingly.
It's a good point. Well, let's talk about the tours that we have coming up, like with the Travel Bug Girls. We've got a couple of tours coming up, so I think it'd be cool to share about those. You want to talk about the Christmas market, Heather?
Yeah, I'd love to. I'm very excited about this tour. We have an opportunity to go see European Christmas markets right before Christmas. We're leaving the weekend after Thanksgiving, and it's a full week trip. We're exploring Christmas markets in Germany, Switzerland, and France. The Alsace region is gorgeous, like storybook level, guys, and it's just magical. So if you've ever dreamt of seeing Europe at Christmas, what a Christmas market is, let me explain that for a second. If you've never heard of this, a Christmas market on the surface it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a place to go shopping for Christmas, okay? But what they do in Europe is they make these little villages in the middle of their city. They literally build huts and decorate them in the middle of the town, and then they fill them with different kinds of handmade goods. So like hand-blown glass Christmas ornaments, handmade tapestries or shawls, all kinds of beautiful handmade gifts. And some of the markets are very competitive. Like you have to qualify as a certain level of artisan to be allowed to apply to sell your things there. And they have long histories. Some of the ones we'll be visiting are some of the oldest markets, like constant running markets in the world. So they only exist for a month in Europe, and then they take them down. So it's a really special thing. And the locals, the way they use these not only is to come out and buy gifts, but it's a social thing. So there are little huts with like warm spiced wines and pastries and all these things, and people will come out and have dinner or cocktail hour after work and chat with their coworkers and friends. And so it's a very social place, as well as like a dream Christmas shopping experience. And also you're in Europe the whole time, so the food is amazing, it's fun, it's beautiful, and you're in these really ancient spaces. Sometimes it's really gonna be a magical trip.
It sounds like a straight out of a Hallmark movie. Like, oh, so
Absolutely.
cute. I love it. Yeah, it sounds amazing.
It is going to be
Cool.
amazing.
I love that.
Tina, what about your New York City tour comes up with Hamilton?
So yeah, we're calling it, since we're here in Texas, and I'll be hopefully getting a group from Texas. We're calling it Howdy Hamilton, and it is it's called the Spotlight Tour. I talked earlier about whether you're going to different places. This is, you're staying right in the heart of New York City, and you are going to 2 different Broadway plays, one of them Hamilton, and then you're also seeing the major sites in New York City, the 9/11 Memorial. You're taking a harbor, the water cruise to go around the Statue of Liberty, option to do a Greenwich Village tour, everything that you think of when you think about New York City. And it's guided. So you have a local guide showing you all these different places, and you are going to experience the different Broadway shows. So this is great for people who are into theater. It's great for people who want to explore New York. A nice group trip. It's during spring break, so it would be a good time for if your kids are into the arts as well. The experience of theater for me is really that bonding experience, just like you'd have at the Christmas market where you're getting together. When you experience live theater together, it just connects us all, and that's something I love about theater and these kind of tours. So I'm really looking forward to this for next spring for 2026.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I'm obsessed with Hamilton. I've seen it one time already, and I want to go see it again. I would see it, but sing it on Broadway.
Yes.
So cool. So is there anything else that you guys have thought of or want to share about travel tours?
I think that one of the things when I was noticing about the New York City one, they do have other tours as well for the New York area. If you can't go to Europe, they have the tour that does the Christmas spectacular, and the rockets and all that kind of thing. So there's different locations with these kind of spotlight tours, and that's all over the world. It's not just New York. So that's been a neat thing to note.
Are we working with Colette on both of those?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, we have found Colette to be a good partner for us because they include everything. So from, like I said, they'll pick you up at your house if you're within a certain distance to the airport. They, will organize all the flights for us, and pre-do the pricing for that, which is really hard to do. So we're really grateful. They must have really good partnerships in order to do that kind of thing. And then they handle all the details from beginning to end. It's really, they put a lot of thought into it. They can, and also the flexibility. They have such a huge catalog of options, both here in the US and abroad on multiple continents. So pretty much if a client can dream it up, we can match them with a Colette tour. And the reason that we like working with them with Travel Bug Girls is because we do have the ability to customize. If we can get a certain number of people to join our groups, then we can customize a few details. And we also can take advantage of those small group tours. If we can, for example, I would love to do another Italy trip or maybe French wine country out of Paris. And those kinds of tours you can have as small as 24 people. So we really could have it like a Travel Bug Girls group only. And I love that concept of being able to take a group that are connected through the Travel Bug Girls to enjoy an experience together. So this is why I think they're a good fit for our clientele in particular. There are many, many good companies out there to work with that offer different options. So we would love to help you find the one that fits you and what you're looking for.
Yeah.
I was looking at one that is in the Thailand area, different places that stops at different places, and each stop is dedicated to a different chakra. So there's different yoga and things that are involved, and so there's tours like that as well. So
cool,
all great stuff.
Yeah, there's really kind of a tour probably for any interests that you have out there, or if there's not, we could help create one like we're done with the the Nitty Adventures. We're kind of helping them. I know it's not necessarily as much of a tour, but creating those custom trips. But overall, I think tours are beneficial because you have the group benefit as far as safety. You have an expert guide that's taking you. It's convenient. You're not having to drive yourself everywhere or research everything. And with all the different companies out there and options out there, you really can find what's going to fit your interests, your budget, your time period, and, kind of the dynamics or the personality, because like with cruise lines have different personalities. I'm sure group companies kind of do as well.
You can also combine tours with other experiences like cruises. For example, an Alaskan cruise combined with a Denali excursion tour. That has been really popular. I've had 3 different clients in the last year that have asked for that experience, or going up into the Canadian Rockies, but then looping an Alaskan cruise in with that. That's just one example of how cruises and tours can go together, but you have the same in the Mediterranean. There's a lot of other options where you can combine 2 experiences together. Or for example, if you want to, there's something you're really wanting to see and experience, but you also want some relaxation time, then why not have a resort stay on one end or the other of your trip with your tour? So you can go and see and experience a location, but then have some time to relax before you go home. I think that would be a perfect vacation.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So that kind of leads us into our next podcast. We're going to be talking about cruise lines. So make sure to tune in for that next week. As we wrap up, every week we always ask what destination is on your mind this week. So we've talked about a lot of different things. What destination is on your mind this week?
I am in New York. I'm thinking about that. Just the experience of the theater, because the only time I've been in the theater in New York, it was actually off Broadway, which was amazing. But to see a Broadway show,
super cool. How about you, Heather?
I'm thinking about Alaska now that I just mentioned it, but also we just have a lot of people traveling there this year, and it's exciting to see how they're blending those experiences.
Yeah, I've been thinking, I'm just obsessed with this whole Christmas market idea. Like, so adorable. Can't stand it.
It's very beautiful. You can be your own Hallmark character.
Yeah, right?
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Travel Bug Girls podcast. Be sure to subscribe to get our new episodes every week. We'd love to connect with you on social media. Share your answer to this week's podcast question with us at facebook.com/travelbuggirls. You can find us on your favorite social media by using @travelbuggirls. Want to join our VIP group? You'll find us on Facebook groups under TBG Travel Bugs. Learn more about the Travel Bug Girls and what we do on our website at travelbuggirls.com. Until next time, keep exploring, keep dreaming, and safe travels. Are you ready to be in the room where it happens? Next spring, your shot at an unforgettable New York City experience is here. Imagine 4 incredible nights in the heart of Times Square, exploring iconic landmarks from Greenwich Village to Wall Street. Picture yourself gazing up at Lady Liberty and reflecting at the powerful 9/11 memorial. But that's not all. This isn't just any trip. It's your chance to witness the revolutionary energy of 2 Broadway shows, including the one you've been waiting for, Hamilton. We're taking care of everything. Round-trip flights from Dallas or your closest airport, comfortable hotel transfers, 5 delicious meals, and easy transportation throughout the city are all included. Don't throw away your shot. Visit travelbuggirls.com to book your Broadway dream trip today. That's travelbuggirls.com. Be a part of history. Experience New York City and the magic of Hamilton.